Hey, what's up, RPT 325? It is Michaela here with your week 13 instructional video. In this video, I'm going to go over the expectations for PP2, Practice and Perfect, for Microsoft Word and Excel, so you are set up for success in that assignment. One thing to note before we get into the instructions and the demonstration is this assignment was assigned as of 11/20, but is not due until December 4th. So you have the remainder of this week plus basically the full week after fall break to complete this assignment. There is no expectation for you to be working on this during break unless you choose so yourself. With that being said, let's get into the instructions and the starting document. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to PP2 starting document. I'm going to open that up and I'm going to download it. That way, by the time we get over to the instructions, I've got everything I need. So now coming back over to Canvas, we're going to open up the instructions. So for this assignment, you are responsible for developing the 2025 budget proposal for the Community Center's annual Turkey Trot. This is a community 10K running event that raises money to support summer camp scholarships later in the year. Last year, the Turkey Trot generated about $1,000 in profit going towards those scholarships, and your overall goal this year is to increase that profit to $2,000 while maintaining participant satisfaction. So keep that overall goal in mind as we move through these instructions. Unfortunately, in addition to that goal of wanting to double your overall profit for those scholarships, things have gotten more expensive. So the cost of your participant t-shirts has increased to $25 a pop. The event permit fee has risen by $500. In addition, only 5 volunteers are available this year, meaning that you're going to have to add additional paid staff or create a creative solution. In addition to those increases, you had a staff and volunteer debrief at the end of the 2024 Turkey Trot, and the group came up with a list of recommendations that you should be implementing in this year's trot. Including expanding event marketing efforts, adding 2 more porta potties throughout the course, adding a VIP parking section with a paid parking attendant, and improving outreach efforts to get more sponsorships. So all of this stuff, including our overall goal, are things that you should keep in mind as we move through this assignment. Before we can create the 2025 budget, we need to understand the 2024 budget because that's going to be our guide. So there's a few things that we have to do to analyze this information and become familiar with all of the different costs, revenue sources, etc. That were involved in last year's trot. So let's go ahead and look at our budget spreadsheet. So in this sheet, we have both costs and revenue sources. The costs are in parentheses, so those are negative numbers, and then our sources of revenue are not in parentheses, those are positive numbers. And then there's a few blank spaces for you to do your analysis. So let's look at the instructions and see what we have to do first. First, we need to find the total cost for each line item in the budget. So there's this handy dandy column already here for you. You barely have to think about it. And we're going to do a really simple formula where we multiply the amount per unit by the quantity of those units. So this is how much each thing costs, and this is how many of those things we have. So for this first one, it's for t-shirts. Each t-shirt is $15, and we had 100 t-shirts because there's 100 participants in this Turkey Trot. So we'll do that multiplication and get the cost of the t-shirts overall. You can repeat that formula in all of these rows, or you can just drag it down. And that is what I'm going to do. So now you've got the total cost for each of these budget line items. Let's see what we have to do next. we're going to use conditional formatting to make the budget easier to understand. So I'll show you one example of how you might do this, but this isn't the only way. You can use conditional formatting in whatever way you think will make this document easier to understand, but I'll just show you one way. So I'm first going to select all of this row. And then I'm going to come over to conditional formatting. I'm going to highlight cells that are greater than 0, and I'm going to make them green. Something else you could do is highlight all the cells that are less than 0 and make them red. We can do that in this column as well, because this is where our totals are. It'll probably highlight in similar places, but just for good practice. Anything greater than 0 will be green, and then again, anything less than 0 will be red. Perfect. So that's all that's required. If you want to do more conditional formatting, be my guest, but that is just about all that's required. We'll see what's next. We're going to find the overall profit of the budget. So again, another super simple formula that we have used before. We're going to go equals sum, and we are just going to add up all of the values in our totals column. And we can also see that our initial instructions here that indicate that last year's trot generated $1,000 in profit is in fact accurate, because our overall profit in this budget sheet is $1,000. So that's always great to verify. Never take anybody's word for it. The last thing that we have to do to analyze the previous year's budget is to create at least 3 pivot charts and tables that show the cost revenue breakdown. Similar to the conditional formatting, this can be totally up to you. I'll give you a couple of examples of some pivot tables and charts you can do, but ultimately this is up for you to decide what is important in this budget to show as you're making your budget for next year. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all the data here, come over to insert, pivot table. This should all be familiar to you. And we're going to pick some fields that we want to include in our first pivot table. So I might include the total cost and the category. From there, I'm going to come over to insert and then select pivot chart. Gives me a default. It's kind of ugly and not the most helpful for understanding this information. So I'm going to come over to the data ribbon. I'm going to sort the data in this chart so it cleans up the chart a little bit. I might change the title to something like total by category, by budget category. We can also change up the design a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. So maybe something like transparent bars, and then making them a little bit thicker so we can see them. We don't really need these axis titles, so we can get rid of those. What else can we do? Oh, we want the axis labels, but we don't want the axis titles. So we'll keep those on. Axis titles, we don't want that. And we don't want that. Clean it up a little bit because they weren't really giving us any information. Some other things you can do here, you can add data labels. So the cost or the revenue for each category is included on the bar. But all of this like design stuff is totally up to you. Just make sure that it makes sense and highlight something that you want to show about the 2024 budget. Make sure you update the name of the sheet. So you could go total money category. And then from there, You're going to right click on that sheet title, go to move or copy, make sure you check copy, move to end. And then from here, you'll do your next pivot chart and pivot table. So you will select different fields in your pop-up over here, and you'll create 2 more pivot tables for your budget analysis. Which ones you choose will be totally up to you. And then just remember, it doesn't have to be a bar chart. It can be any of the other charts that Excel is capable of. I will let you decide. From there, you will have a pretty good understanding of the 2024 budget. And the next thing you'll need to do is determine whether the budget and the overall event from last year was successful. Luckily, last year you collected some participant feedback from those turkey trotters, and that's also provided in this Excel document in the section 2024 feedback. Now, this is a skill that we have not gone over, so I will show it more in depth than the rest of this assignment, just so you have a really good understanding of how to complete this type of analysis. This is called a qualitative analysis, because you will be analyzing direct quotes or comments from these participants. You've got about 50 of them here, and we're going to try and quantify these words. And we're going to do that through a process called coding. So to do that, the first thing you want to do is read through all the responses to get an overall impression of the participant feedback. So you'll come over here and you'll read each one of these comments to get a general idea of what people were thinking, how the race went from a participant standpoint. After you do that, you're going to identify recurring topics or themes in this feedback. So, for example, there might be several comments that have to do with post-race food. There might be a few comments on there needing to be more aid station supplies. There might be some positive feedback about the overall course. Reading through and getting some ideas of things that are coming up more than once. From there, you're going to develop key themes and add these as new columns into your data set. So what that looks like is, as you're reading through, you're going to add themes in the columns next to these comments. So we'll walk through it. So first comment, volunteers were amazing, super friendly. For that, we can say staff/volunteers and then put a plus sign for positive. Staff and volunteers, positive. We'll keep reading through. Post-race food was lacking, so refreshments. Minus, because it was a negative comment. Moving on to the next, volunteers were total rock stars, hoping for better post-race food. So this is a very similar comment. So we don't need to add any more themes. We'll move down, volunteers were cheerful and motivating, hope to see some more food trucks. So I might even add food trucks. So that's a little bit different than just like the refreshments weren't good. Keep going. Volunteers were awesome. We could use some more aid supplies and better refreshments. So that has to do with refreshments, but also better aid supplies. Coming on down even more. Vibe was awesome. Post-race refreshments could definitely be improved. Staff was awesome. Please bring back some better food and drink options. You can kind of see that we're getting some of the same kind of comments. A lot of people were having similar experiences. Race itself was awesome. Post-race food situation, not so much. Event was well organized. Could use more aid stations. So we could also say organization, positive. And you're going to continue adding different themes to the columns next to our comments until you get to the bottom and you think you have gotten a good understanding of all of the different themes that have come up in this feedback. Once you have all of those themes, you'll come back up to the top and you are going to either put a 0 or a 1 in these cells. A 1 represents that the theme in this column is represented in this comment. A 0, it means that it's not. So if we're going to just do these 5 themes, it would look a little something like this. So volunteers were amazing, super friendly, post-race food was lacking. That definitely has to do with staff and volunteers seen in a positive light. Refreshments were lacking. Yep, that was included in this comment. This comment does not mention a food truck or better aid stations or the organization of the event. So we've got 1s where this theme is represented, 0s where the theme is not represented. And you're going to do each comment just like that. So volunteers were total rock stars. Yep, that is represented here. Hoping for better post-race food next year. Yep. And then food trucks not mentioned, better aid not mentioned, organization not mentioned. Coming down to the next one. Volunteers were super cheerful and motivating. It kind of mentions refreshments, definitely mentions food trucks, doesn't mention aid stations, doesn't mention the organization of the event. Volunteers were super awesome. Refreshments, yep, that is mentioned. Food truck not mentioned. Better aid supplies is mentioned. Organization not mentioned. We'll do a couple more. So the vibe was super awesome. Post-race refreshments could definitely be improved. So no mention of staff, definitely mention of refreshments, no food trucks, no aid stations, no organization. Staff was awesome. Post-race food situation, not so much. So you'll keep going, it'll go faster and faster. Race itself was awesome. Bring back better food options and drink. Okay. And then this is, doesn't mention any staff, does mention refreshments, not food trucks. The event was well organized, but could use some more aid stations and supplies, post-race options. So nothing about staff, little about refreshments, nothing about food trucks, better aid station, and it does mention organization. So you'll keep going through. Once you've identified all of your themes, you'll go through and you'll code each one of the themes until everything is coded. From there, you're going to tally how often each theme appears. So all that means, we just did that. You're going to summarize your findings with tables and charts. And to do that, we're going to find the total for each one of the themes. So once all of these are full, you'll come down to the row right after, and you're just going to do a sum formula for that whole row. And you'll do it all the way across for all of your themes. You'll double check that it's correct. Yep. And then you'll be able to see the total number of times that each theme was mentioned. From there, you can create either a pivot table and pivot chart or a manual chart just by going like this, copying your themes, pasting them down, copying your totals, pasting them down. And then from there, you can select it, go to insert, and then add in just a bar chart is fine. And it'll look something like this. Obviously, you'll have more numbers because you'll go through the whole process, but you can name your chart title something like 2024 feedback themes or feedback analysis. And you'll be able to see which themes came up the most that you might want to address in your 2025 budget. Awesome. So that is your qualitative analysis. We'll move on now to creating our 2025 budget. So you're going to make a copy of the 2024 trot sheet and relabel it 2025 trot. So let's do that first. 2024 trot. Go over here, move or copy, create a copy. We'll move it to the end and we'll rename it 2025 trot. Now we're going to need to make some adjustments based on the information in this paragraph here. So the first thing, that t-shirt prices have increased to $25 each. So we're going to come over here, change this -15 to a -25. Yikes, that makes things a lot more expensive. The event permit fee has risen by $500. So we're going to find the event permit fee and we're going to increase that by $500. So -950. What else? Only 5 volunteers are available this year. So we'll come over to our volunteers. Instead of 7, we only have 5. All right, let's see how we're going to implement these recommendations from our staff and volunteers. So we're going to have to expand our marketing efforts. We're going to need to add 2 more porta potties, add a VIP parking section with a paid parking attendant, and improve outreach efforts. So let's add in some placeholders for all of these things to be included in our budget. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in some extra rows here so we can add these in. So first things first, we're going to take care of making some space to expand our event marketing efforts. So I'm going to add in category here is marketing. And this will be for things like flyers, social media, etc. And then from there, we're going to have to figure out how much something like this might cost. So we're probably going to only have one fixed cost with like a marketing agency or one of our staff members. And let's say that we're going to spend an extra $250 on marketing for the next year, the next year's trot, that is. So this number will be up to your research or your decision. I'm just showing you an example here, and we'll do that for each one of these things. Your budget does not have to end up exactly like mine, but it can if you're following step by step. We're going to add 2 more porta potties throughout the course. So there's already a spot for porta potties here. We just need to increase that from 1 to 3, easy peasy. And we're going to add in a VIP parking section. So VIP parking is going to be a revenue source. Again, all of these specifics will be up to you, but let's go ahead and add that in. Parking, VIP section. Tickets. And let's say that we have 40 parking spots available near the course, and we're going to sell those for an extra $20. Don't put parentheses because this is a revenue source. And that's going to help us make up some of the cost of maybe these extra, the extra $10 per t-shirt. We'll see. However, we also have a parking attendant or parking staff. This is going to be probably a fixed cost, depending on how your parking attendant is paid. If it's hourly, then it might be a variable cost. You'll be able to decide that. Not a huge deal. Let's say that our parking staff gets a flat rate for the event of about, let's say they get paid like $250 for the day. We're only gonna have one, and that is a cost, not a revenue source. And let's see what else. So took care of our parking attendant. We're going to improve our outreach efforts to get more local sponsorships. So this will be twofold. So this will be outreach. This is going to be something like outreach efforts to just be general. And this might be paying staff to make phone calls to local businesses to see if they want to make a donation to the turkey trot. So this will depend on what your vision is for your turkey trot. This again could be like paying a marketing agency. This could be staff time, however you think about it. I'm going to say that mine is going to be outreach staff time. And let's say that my staff are going to spend 3 hours each creating relationships with local businesses. So what we have to do for that is we'll take their wages, we'll paste them down here. Let's say that each person here is going to spend 3 hours. We're going to do our multiplication formula. This is how much it'll cost each of these staff members for 3 hours of work. We'll get a total here. And it costs a total of about $315 for all of these staff members to each spend 3 hours on outreach efforts. Again, you don't have to do it like that. But you totally can. Paste it down, 315. Let's say that's just quantity of 1 because we've already done the math down here. We can just label this outreach staff time, or we can delete it altogether since we've already done the math. Doesn't matter. But from those 3 hours of staff time, let's say that we get a few more sponsorships. So the sponsorships that we already have are a local grocery store, sporting goods stores, and then a couple of rich people donating some money. Awesome. So let's say that we get 3 more sponsorships. You can be creative. Maybe there is a local pro runner who donates $700 to your turkey trot. Let's say that you know somebody at Nike who donates $1,000 to your turkey trot. And then maybe there's another pro runner, whoever, who donates another $500. So these are all donations that are going towards your turkey trot. You can be creative with who those sponsors are, but just make sure that your outreach efforts are successful, and then fill in whether you think it's a fixed cost, revenue source, etc., etc. Then delete any extra rows that you have in here. From there, we can just copy these formulas, make sure that all of our math is adding up, making sure the formulas are pasted correctly, and then making sure that all of these cells are included in our formula. And then you can see where we're at from there and see if you need to make any adjustments. So with just these initial adjustments that we made based on the price increases and the recommendations from the staff debrief, we have a total profit of $1,185. One of the other things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we're including the participant feedback in our 2025 trot budget. So you might want to add in some space for something like food trucks. And this could be a opportunity for revenue. So this could be vendors as a category. And let's say that you want to have 3 food trucks at the finish line. You're going to charge each of those vendors a fee of, let's say, $250. That's going to increase our profits quite a bit. And then the rest of it, you're going to have to be a little bit creative. You might want to cut down on some costs. Also, don't forget that we've lost 2 volunteers, so we're going to need to add in some space for some more staff. So maybe this is 2 more interns. Each with the same amount of time, so we can just go ahead and copy this, paste it down. And when we do that, we're down to $1,455. So like I said, you're going to have to get a little bit creative. Think of ways where you can either get more sponsorships, reduce the cost of equipment or awards, see if you can get more snacks donated. Folks also talked about how the Bananas, Uncrustables, and Waters were lackluster refreshments. So you're going to probably want to update those to something more intriguing. But if you're getting things that are more than these, are they going to be donated? I don't know. It's up to you. After that, you're going to repeat your analysis that you did for the 2024 trot. For your 2025 trot budget. So those are the same formulas and the same pivot tables and charts that you created previously. That way you can compare your new budget to the old one. And you're going to use these in your budget proposal report, which we'll talk about next. But basically, the 3 pivot charts that you created for your 2024 budget, just repeat those with your 2025 budget. That way you can look at them next to each other and include both in your proposal. So again, that will look like selecting all your data, going to insert, pivot table, blah, 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 selecting your fields, making it look good, etc. This should all be very familiar. Insert a pivot chart, blah, blah, blah. Update the design using the design ribbon, something like that. Maybe make it a little wider, maybe adjust the data labels, etc., etc. That looks awful. Don't do that. But however you decide to do it, just make sure it's the same as your 2024 budget, but for your 2025 budget. After that, you'll have all of your analysis done, and you are going to create your budget proposal in Microsoft Word. This should be super review at this point, but all of the things that you need to include are a title page, APA formatted. You'll have a table of contents, table of tables, and table of figures. You will have an introduction, just brief, where you describe the event, purpose, challenge, etc. You'll have your first section that overviews the 2024 budget and your analysis of the participant feedback. Make sure you put in all of your relevant charts and tables. Briefly discuss any trends that you see. Give your qualitative findings, so from the participant feedback, and then explain how this feedback guided your decisions for 2025. What were the themes that were most interesting to you that you implemented in 2025? Then your next section will be your budget for this year. Again, you'll insert all of your charts and tables. You'll outline strategies that you use to meet the profit goal while maintaining participant satisfaction. So what were the changes that you made in here? So any of the rows that you added, what snacks did you change? Did you give space for some food trucks? How much did you rent those vendor spaces for? Anything like that. And then you'll propose cost-saving measures. So did you find a way to get the podium and finish line rental at a discount? Or did you figure out a way to get the volunteer and staff meals donated so you don't have to pay $25 per meal for that? And then include a visually pleasing and understandable version of your budget there's a typo there, but include it in the report. So that just means copying this as a table, but making it look pretty so it looks nice in your Word doc. From there, write a little reflection, what you learned about budgeting and data analysis, explain how you use Excel tools and how they supported your decision. If you used any references, which you might not have, but if you used AI, definitely cite that. And then just make sure your document passes the accessibility test, that you use headings or styles, and that your document meets APA guidelines. Your final submission will include your Excel file, your Word document, and then export your Word document as a PDF for your final version. Put all of that in a OneDrive folder and submit the link here on Canvas. Hopefully that is a helpful demonstration with some background information for this assignment. Obviously, I didn't demonstrate every single step, but hopefully with what I've shown you here, plus the instructional videos from past assignments, you are set up to succeed. I am not really worried about any of you not succeeding. But if by any chance you run into any issues or something isn't working quite right, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to hop on Zoom with anybody and we can figure it out together. Otherwise, I hope everyone has, or had, depending on when you're watching this, a wonderful fall break, and I will see you in class on December 4th. Bye!